So in this video, I'm going to show you how to replace or rebuild your water pump. Gasket seals. If you have coolant leaking out of your weep hole, this tiny little hole here at the bottom, that's because you're going to need to rebuild your water pump. Or if you're starting to get oil in your coolant, your oil seal on the back side has failed. Either way, the water pump will have to be rebuilt. All my torque specs, capacities will be in the bottom whenever I can find that's a reliable source. I'll put there in the description. I'm sorry, not the bottom, the description. So needless to say, let's go ahead. So obviously you're going to need your brake lever off and out of the way to pull the inner clutch cover off. I had to take the exhaust system on this one off because it wrapped down and around. You might not have to, depending on what exhaust system you have on your bike. Kickstarter's got to come off. You do not have to take off your outer clutch cover, just this one bolt on this particular machine. And I went ahead and removed this coolant hose just to make things easier. You don't have to remove it, you just take this bottom one off and then fight it when you come off. So either way, let's get started. Okay, got all the inner clutch cover bolts off, but it'd be a good idea right now to take your water pump cover off. I've already drained the coolant. Of course, coolant's going to have to be drained. You can lay the bike on the side to keep from draining the tranny oil if you want, but I've already drained the tranny oil because I'm going to change it at the same time too. So let's get this impeller off now. Make things easier in the future. Don't forget your copper washer. Double seal style, not mechanical. So it's a lot easier to change. I don't like them because they seem to fail a lot more frequently than a mechanical seal does. But maybe that's just the brand name that you're using for your rebuild kits. So let's get this guy off. Yes. You probably have some oil drip out anyways because it'll get held up here on the clutch cover. And this is actually going to be nice because this one side is going to be easy to clean gasket material off of. Don't forget to clean up your sealing surfaces with a razor blade and a emery cloth, or I like to use Scotch-Brite pads. They work fucking fantastic. So, but there's that. Your impeller shaft should come with it. Right there, that guy. If not, you probably have a problem. So, now that we got that off, we're going to move the clutch cover up to the workbench and we're going to start rebuilding this water pump. So I'll meet you up there. So, we're up here on the workbench. We're going to need to get the shaft out, obviously. Get him out and out of the way. And we're going to start with this guy right here. You can use like a flat blade or a flat blade screwdriver or something like that, but you might damage the sealing surfaces, so the seal puller is always nice to have. So we'll get the big one out of the way, and now we can see that the smaller seal, the oil seal for the water pump, but we have this bearing that's in the way. So what we're going to do is, oh, you're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to shake you. Okay, hopefully it's still in picture. Yeah, alright. So we're just going to take a socket. Looks like this one will probably be too big. Just a tiny tad bit small. So we're just going to force everything out this backside by being violent with it. But, you know, you're probably going to get shooken around, so bear with me. Let's see if that happens again. Yep, hang on. We're going to set you down here. Okay, let's make sure everything's still in frame. Maybe a little bit like that. Okay, pounded the bearing and the seal through. We're gonna flip it back over. Now, because the little seal is gonna go in first, you know what we should do though is clean up the sealing surfaces. Make sure we don't get any leaks in the future, or more longevity of the seal. I know that's wiping up really easy. Expected more of a fight there. And what have you. So now you're going to be putting in the little seal, and you want the numbers facing away from the inner side. So numbers, the back side, you can see a little metal spring ring thingy, and we're just going to thumb him in there just nice and tight like that. And now we have our new bearing. It, you know, doesn't really matter which way this one faces because it doesn't have a seal on the back side of it. So we're going to put him in here, and we're going to force him in with a bigger socket like a so. You could use a bearing seal driver, what have you, but obviously I was shaking the piss out of you, so I'm going to move this down to the ground while I fight this into place. And I'm just going to put a block under the back side of this so it prevents it from getting damaged and I don't damage the outer clutch cover and stuff like that. So I'll be right back. Go until he's flush, or in this case somewhat flush. He's still got a little rim, but he's all the way against the edge there. Now before we put our shaft in, we need this bigger seal, and the way this one was installed was like this, facing this way, and I'm just going to assume that's correct. Maybe that's why it failed, but either way I kind of want it to keep the fluid on this side, so I would just assume it goes this way. You can always look up a parts diagram to prove me wrong or right. I don't care which one, so long as you get it right and don't fuck it up. So I'm going to once again take him back down to the ground and pound this seal in, and I'll be right back. Alright, so nice and flush. He's got his little rib on, kind of protruding out just a little bit. A little bit of wood block in there. So at this point, you're done with your seal. All your sealing edges, you're going to wipe down your shaft. Hopefully this is still all in frame. Wipe down your shaft and install him back in there. You might want to use some oil, give him a little twist to assist going in, like a so. And there you go. And now, at this point, you would be cleaning up your sealing surfaces, getting ready to go back together. Once again, like heavy gasket material, you can use a razor blade to get that off first, and then like a Brillo Scotch-Brite pad to wipe it down to make it nice, flush, and clean. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll meet you back down at the bike. Back at the bike. You can't really see it all that much. There you go. Got the sealing surfaces all cleaned up, all that fun stuff. And forgot to mention I went with a Vertex kit. Even though I'm not a fan of Vertex, hardly at all. Not a fan at all. But they're the only ones that seem to recognize that when you rebuild a water pump, you're going to need an inner clutch cover gasket. So they're the only kits I've found that come with it. So like Pivot Works, Wiseco, all you guys need to get your shit together. So I am going to need something sharp, because the gasket kit comes with a new O-ring for this guy right here. So we're just going to take the old O-ring out. Careful not to damage the sealing surface or anything like that. Make sure not to remove him too. If you do, whatever, put him back in place. Toss that old O-ring. We're going to put the new O-ring in place. And now comes the exciting part. Now always put the dowel pins on like your mounting surface. That way it holds the gasket in place for you. Makes everything a lot easier. Make sure you wipe it down before you do this, so there is no like oil in between the gasket and what have you. It can assist with an oil leak in the future, or right off the bat sometimes. I have seen that. So now we're going to set this guy in place. If you have a hard time getting him to go in place, especially on the water pump side, you might just need to give this guy, you know, an assisted turn. It's actually quite hard to turn, to get him to line up with his slot inside the balancer. So we're going to go ahead and start lining everything up, make sure it stays nice and even. And I'm already at that point, so I'll take my new copper washer for this side, put him in place, and we're going to get this guy started maybe. There we go. He's all started, kind of covered in oil and old coolant. So I'm just going to go nice and easy and slow, because as soon as it starts to seat, it's going to start spinning it. There we go. Now we're lined up there. So now all we need to do is make sure she goes all the way flush, all by herself. Might need to give her a few spanks because she's a dirty girl, but make sure it sets up right. And before you start smashing everything down, you want to make sure that all your bolts go in and you get a couple threads on. So I'm going to go ahead and go all the way around, get all these bolts started, and after that we'll come back to the water pump. Before you zip everything down real quick, one of these was longer than the rest, and he went right here behind the right next to the swing arm pivot bolt. Right there, he's a little bit longer. If that's the reason why you're watching the video, that's where he goes. But you just pretty much want to make sure they all have about the same gap between them and the inner clutch cover. And after that, you're going to go in pretty much a star pattern all across it. You probably want the correct sized socket to do so though. Alright, and if you are using an impact, remember to make sure you're not using anything that goes higher than like 120 inch-pounds or 12 foot-pounds, because you'll start stripping bolts or what have you. So now that we've got that on, let's not forget to put our final snuggy snug on our actual impeller here. Snuggy snug. And then we need to get the water pump cover. Take this gasket out. This is nice because the O-ring gaskets are much easier to deal with than paper gasket. A lot less cleaning involved. And this is one of the reasons why I dislike Vertex, because their gaskets, especially their O-ring styles, never line up. Never at all. So you got to kind of like force it. Sometimes you can wipe the O-ring down with some grease to help hold it in place, but they just don't ever line up, and they always seem to be too small or too big. All balls has the same problem, I've noticed too, over the years. Which sucks, because all balls used to be one of my favorites. So you're just going to line up your dowel pin, set this guy in place, and since that gasket doesn't want to sit, oh, there's a piece of hair, probably mine. You're going to want to make sure he sits all the way, which he's not wanting to. He's got to sit all by himself. Just like that. Now I'm going to hold him in place because, you know, zip him down. Alright, and the reason why I didn't put this guy in is because the kit comes with a new crush washer. It's aluminum instead of copper, but it's a crush washer and it's brand new, so you might as well use it, right? Zip him down. Ta-da! As simple as that. That's how you rebuild a double seal style water pump on a dirt scoop. And after this, of course, you just go back together, throw your coolant hose on, brake lever, kickstarter. In my case, I have to put the exhaust back on. But before I do, I'm just going to put the hose on. I'm going to put coolant in it to make sure that it does not leak. And I've left the transmission side drain plug out. And I'm going to lean the bike that way, away from the radiator cap, to make sure that I fill it up completely and I don't have an inner leak as well. But that's it. Simple and easy.